India will have a new army chief, a man with a vast experience in the valley at the line of control, dealing with insurgency in areas such as Sopore, one of the biggest flashpoints and trouble spots in the Kashmir valley, has also served in the northeast and led the Myanmar raids along the border against NSA and IM militants. This would be a stellar record. So why is this appointment in the middle of controversy? Well, the opposition is questioning why two senior serving officers were superseded in the appointment of General Rawat as the army chief. Given all the battles India is fighting, is the opposition in fact picking an unworthy and small and unnecessary fight, in fact one that could wound the ethos of our military? GVL Rao of the BJP and Manish Tiwari of the Congress are still with us. Manish is the one who did raise this issue in a big way on behalf of the Congress party. General Hasnain is with us, and of course former Chief of Army Staff General Shankar Roy Chaudhary is with us as well. Air Marshal PS Ahluwalia will be joining us in a moment from now. Let me start with the politicians' permissions with the General Chaudhary. I must give the first word to you. What is wrong in doing a deep selection and placing not just merit, because the word merit would suggest that the other two are in some ways not meritorious, but perhaps an assessment that the danger at the moment is of low intensity asymmetric warfare, and an officer who has more experience in that would be better poised to be the army chief? General Chaudhary.
Well, number one, the first point you mentioned about deep selection.
Yes.
I think that's a very dangerous idea because it leaves the field wide open for interference by politicians. So it's good that we are going along on the system we are following, promotion by seniority, keeping the politicians and politics out of it, and that's the way we should go. So this deep selection is a bad idea.
General Hasnain, I know you disagree.
Now the second point.
Yeah, sorry, complete your point, General Chaudhary. Complete your point.
The second point you mentioned about experience of senior commanders in various places.
Yes.
Let me also say that we've got a stellar group of senior commanders. Stellar, all of them are excellent. When a person gets to the stage of an army commander, professionally he is well above average. And all our army commanders are really excellent in their performances.
Okay.
They have operated in different theaters,
of course,
under different conditions. Yes. They have vast experience, and with almost like saying one is as good as the other, and they can handle all situations under all conditions of terrain, weather, and also the type of operation.
Okay. General Hasnain, I have read enough of what you've written to know that you have a different view from General Shankar Roy Chaudhary. You believe deep selection actually helps, doesn't hurt the military. You also make the point that as General Officer commanding in particularly troubled times in the Kashmir Valley, you handpicked General Rawat, the Army Chief Designate, to come and help you in a particularly troubled area. He did a stellar job. He's dealt with counterinsurgency in Sopore, Baramulla. He's been at the border. He's been in the northeast. He's seen the Myanmar raids. But General Chaudhary makes the argument that all of our commanders are so accomplished that each one of them could do this as needed, and you cannot focus so much on operational experience.
Barkha, firstly I'll have to give you a bit of a preamble to this.
Yes.
But let me also start by saying that I agree entirely with General Shankar Roy Chaudhary on his second point.
Okay.
And I'm also aware that on your panel are some very eminent people.
Yes.
And therefore I have a lot of respect for them. General Shankar Roy Chaudhary is a very, very senior officer, and being a former army chief. He's been a student of my father. So I'm actually debating with someone that eminent. I'm fully conscious of it. I would like to start by saying that yes, General Rawat was under me and I handpicked him myself. The army was good enough to give him to me, and he performed admirably in the valley. I endorse all that. But to take up General Shankar Roy Chaudhary's first point, all our officers are no doubt outstanding, but I think there is a counterpoint which has been existing in the army, that you have to ultimately also give credit to merit. Now in this case, I think merit is the wrong term to use.
Yes.
What we need to use is the word suitability.
Okay.
And a government of the time, I think, has the liberty to perceive the threats which exist and the manner in which it wants to manage the security environment of the country.
Yes.
If it perceives that there is a need of a person with a hands-on experience in a particular kind of warfare, which in this case is primarily hybrid and asymmetric warfare, then so be it. It is the decision of the government. But one last point I want to make, which is a very important aspect. And that is, why should this necessarily become politicized?
I agree with that.
And I do not want to comment on anything else. I do not want to make this a negative thing here. But for the future, I want to suggest that the government may like to have a look at a system of a collegiate, almost similar to the selection of the Chief Vigilance Commissioner, in which you have the opposition involved. You may even have a member of the civil society. You could even have a former 1 or 2 army chiefs. You could even have some members of the veteran community. So that all the stakeholders are represented. You have a consensus approach and you do not come up with this kind of negativity that we have come up with this time.
I think that's a very important point, because I'm personally quite disturbed, and I will be asking Manish about this in a moment. I'm personally a bit unsettled as a very long time ardent admirer of the military, that the military should be drawn into any kind of politics. Marshal Ahluwalia, how do you see this fuss and fury, as it were, over this deep selection? General Shankar Roy Chaudhary says deep selection is dangerous, it gives too much power to politicians.
I'll start with a caveat that I will not be writing anybody's ACR on the show. That's the first point. And the second point is, I think we need to discuss the broader issue, and that is the selection process. Undoubtedly, merit is for consideration. Merit is the ultimate choice that we should be having. However, if you see what has happened this time, that you have selected somebody on the basis of his experience in the Northeast insurgency, the proxy war that is going on in J&K, and the proxy war with respect to the West. Now, is that a criteria? Is that a criteria? Have we ensured that we have laid down that insurgency and proxy war is the #1 priority for the armed forces today? Because your entire force levels will have to be built up on that. Now, if you take the case of the Air Force, when we had a helicopter pilot who was made the Chief of the Air Staff, the helicopter pilot cannot command 70% of the Indian Air Force, neither could he command Southwestern and the Western Air Command, neither be the Vice Chief, but yet the UPA-2 or UPA-1, I think, they made him the Chief of Air Staff.
So you're saying seniority is not everything?
No, so therefore seniority is not everything, but I'm just giving you two cases, contrasting cases of two governments, having different perspectives. In one perspective, it made no difference and you made a helicopter chopper pilot. On the other, now you're saying it is important. So therefore, we need a strategic, by design, merit should be there, but merit has to start a long while before.
I get what you're saying, and I want to bring in Manish. Manish, I think it's very important what's being said here, and the Congress also needs to be reminded that while it was not the military, Shiv Shankar Menon as Foreign Secretary, I think, superseded, if I'm not wrong, somewhere between 12 and 16 bureaucrats to become a hand-picked choice as Foreign Secretary. Mr. Shyam Saran, these are two brilliant diplomats, by the way. Just like the two officers who've been superseded by General Rawat are also brilliant men. I happen to know these officers, and these are all brilliant men. That's not the point. The point is, Manish, the argument being made by at least Air Marshal Ahluwalia and General Hasnain, but not by General Chaudhary, is that every government assesses suitability and requirement of that set of circumstances. Is it correct of you to bring politics around the next army chief? Isn't that very dangerous?
Well, Barkha, allow me to point out that it is not only the opposition. I'm actually getting an echo in my ear, so therefore you'll have to bear with me. What I was trying to point out is that it is not only the opposition which has raised this particular issue. In fact, if you read the column which has been written by General Idris Singha, if I get the name correctly, and General Vijay Oberoi, who was Lieutenant General Vijay Oberoi, who was the Vice Chief of the Army Staff, both of them have also raised very critical questions with regard to the supersession. It is not that supersession has not happened in the army earlier. It happened in the case of General Vaidya when he was
Yes.
appointed,
Yes.
superseding General Sinha.
Yes.
But the counter argument is that after that, for 33 years, the principle of seniority held the field. And there is a particular reason as to why the principle of seniority held the field in an organization which is hierarchy conscious, which respects seniority, because it was felt that if you unsettle the hierarchy, if you unsettle the whole process of seniority, you may end up creating a deep divide within the institution per se. And now that this argument which is being trotted out, you are actually trying to cherry pick between 3 army commanders.
Yes.
Now, as General Shankar Roy Chaudhary was correctly pointing out, somebody who has made it to the level of an army commander is obviously professionally very accomplished. So therefore, if at all you've decided to supersede the 2 senior officers and pick the 3rd one, then those reasons obviously need to be put out as to why you've done that. Because to say that a officer is more accomplished than his seniors, for a variety of reasons, which possibly, may be topical today, and that situation can dynamically change in 3 months' time.
That situation is not static. I agree with that. I agree with that.
An equitable process of
situation
selection
is not static. GVL Rao, I think General Hasnain makes an interesting proposal. You see, the one thing we do not need, our military does not need, is partisanship debate.
I've lost the audio.
Yeah, we'll just fix it, Manish.
Lost the audio.
We'll fix the audio to Manish. Let me bring in GVL Rao in the meantime.
Yeah.
GVL Rao, partisanship, partisan politics around the military is dangerous for any country. Right? So I find this General Hasnain's proposal that can this be an inter-party consultative process? Do you agree with that? And how do you see this current debate?
No, you see, I do not really want to comment on the views expressed by the veterans. I think they are all highly accomplished veterans in their own fields, and it would not be proper for me to really give an off-the-cuff remark, because this is something I've heard on your show. But to my mind, even if you were to do it, I'm trying to really venture a comment on this. Somebody else would say, okay, you have involved these experts, but not somebody else. Why did you pick this civilian and not that civilian? Why did you pick this journalist and not the journalist? So I think in this country we have had this culture of carping, sometimes very unnecessarily, and on a subject like appointment of an army chief, which is completely bereft of any political nature. I think unnecessarily political parties have jumped themselves into it.
Okay.
You see, it's a bona fide decision.
Yes.
I have not seen anybody question the decision on the merits.
Yes.
But I see it's very well for the veterans, for the army and the former army and former military officers to comment on this. Is extremely a healthy debate. If they write blogs, I'm fine with it.
But not
for political parties to jump in and then make different comments and pick different individuals based on their own considerations, this is actually causing disaffection in the armed forces. This is a political hot potato.
Yes.
It has serious repercussions and implications.
You, and I will take that back
and my sincere appeal to them,
yes,
please stay away from it. If any of them have any comment to, they can discuss it informally, but not publicly like this.
Okay, we need Manish back to actually put that question to him. But in the meantime, General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, would you agree that if there is to be a debate on this, this debate must be within the community? That with every politician jumping in, with it becoming an opposition versus government, it is dangerous. And I agree with GVL Rao. It is dangerous for our military. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I will put this to Manish. Wasn't Navy Chief, Manish is back, wasn't Navy Chief Admiral Dhawan, didn't he also supersede Admiral Shekhar Sinha in April 2014, Manish? I will remind you of that. And that time we didn't see, it was your party, in fact, in power. And it was also a supersession done in the military. You guys did this. Now you're creating a fuss when another government has done this. I'll allow Manish a brief response on the Navy supersession, and then General Shankar Roy Chaudhary can come in.
Barkha, you are absolutely correct. There was a supersession which led to Admiral Sinha's resignation, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But the fact is that if there was a particular reason as to why that supersession took place,
Yes.
that supersession wasn't questioned. But here, you see, the army is a public institution. You know, the army is an institution which protects and defends the unity and integrity of the country. And if you have a departure from a time-held principle which has held the field for 33 years,
But what was
and
your
if
reason?
the government
What
has
was the
compelling
UP's reason
reasons,
when
and with
when
no
Admiral Dhawan
offense
again
to
appointed
General
officer?
Rawat's qualifications as a soldier, I think there is a need for those reasons to be put out in the public space, because you see, the argument which is being made that one commander is better than the other at the level of army commanders is an extremely dangerous and insidious
I want to go to
suggestion.
General Shankar Roy Chaudhary. Okay, Manish GVL Rao, please let's now listen to the military men. General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, as I was saying, this has happened before. Admiral Dhawan, another fine officer whom I know well, did supersede Admiral Sinha, who then resigned. This has happened before.
I know it's happened before. It's never done any good. The recent case that you mentioned in the Navy was unfortunate, I think, and it certainly didn't do the Navy any good.
You are saying, sir, that supersession in any circumstances is not something you agree with, General Chaudhary?
I will say that the normal process of selection must go on.
Okay.
The names must come to the Cabinet Committee of Appointments, which is chaired by the Prime Minister and the other members of the Cabinet. They have the final say in deciding of three equally good people professionally.
Yes.
Then they have to consider various factors and let them decide, ki, all right,
But that's what
we
they
will
did, sir.
pick,
That's what they're saying they
X.
did here. General Chaudhary, that's what the BJP is saying they did
Yes,
here.
I also would like to suggest that the process of selection, when it goes through the proper, the normal channels, it
Yes.
is considered at the highest level.
Yes.
Unless there are very serious reasons, particularly involving particularly involving shortcomings on the moral side, even the appointments committee of the cabinet
Should follow the seniority
should
principle.
go along with the principle of
I'll allow
seniority.
GVL Rao brief interjection, then General Hasnain and Air Marshal. GVL, please.
You see, for the Congress to really question a bona fide decision
Yes.
is like the boy who cried wolf too often, finding up losing his credibility. Be it Rahul Gandhi or be it Mr. Manish Tiwari on the show. They have done it too often without adequate reasons. Honestly, I think their own credibility will be on the line. I think they should really choose what to do next.
I will put it to Manish in a moment, but I'll allow the generals and the Air Marshals to come in. General Hasnain, go ahead.
Barka, firstly, I hate to counter what General Shankar Roy Chaudhary has said. But I am forced to do that with a personal opinion. I am also an ex-military secretary of the army. And I know how many times people have come to me and complained and said, why can't merit be the entire criteria? And constitutionally, if you see, the whole idea of sending 5 names to the appointments committee suggests this, that seniority cum suitability or merit is what needs to be followed. Now, I need to remind the panel about one more thing which has not been taken stock of. At the rank of army commander, you have another clause of saying 2 years residual service. So you're automatically eliminating a lot of merit at that stage.
Right.
And you are taking out people from bottom of the list. And once again you want to go by seniority to appoint the chief, purely seniority. Aren't you compromising merit completely?
It's a fair
The
question.
constitution has given you this,
It's a fair question.
power, is given you this power.
Yes.
And General Shankar Roy Chaudhary has himself said that it is the government of the day which has the powers to select. And
Yes.
they must select. In this particular case, the government of the day has done that. Now,
Okay.
what has been wrong
Air
with
Marshal.
this?
Air Marshal.
Barkha, I think everybody is with it that there should be merit. The question is that
And I want to underline again and again and again and again that this is no comment on the capability and the caliber and the records of the
Absolutely.
officers superseded or the officers appointed in any example, past or present. I just want to reiterate that for the benefit of our viewers.
Right.
No disrespect, all respect to all officers we're talking about.
right.
Yeah.
Nobody is doubting that there must be merit, and suitability becomes a part of merit. The question is, do we consider merit from the time at the mid-level officer stage, a selection process, or do we start 40 years before, where you get a number, a personal number, as you pass out as a cadet?
Yeah.
And that number holds you in terms of seniority.
Yes.
So if you got two people who commissioned on the same day, after 40 years, maybe one number difference, you say it's seniority. So the question of seniority has to be tempered with suitability, merit. But merit must be transparent, merit must be above board, merit must be seen to be above board.
Okay.
So therefore, a panel suggestion with, shall we say, the Prime Minister, the Defence Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, like you have for the
CVC.
CBI and the CVC. However, it must be
CVC.
tempered with another level, and that other level should be a parliamentary committee to at least interview what they're going to get.
I don't know that the military would be open to that, General Chaudhary. Before I give GVL Rao and Manish Tiwari the last words, would the military be open to that system of appointment?
You know, I think the Americans have some kind of a system like this. I believe the congressman interview I think that's a bad system.
Yeah.
I think that's a bad system. Let us have professionally competent people who've been up the chain of command, which, by the way, has been decimated at almost every rank. Because every rank you have people falling 10%, 40%, 50%, 60%. So what you get at the very top
Yes.
are the cream of the cream of the cream multiplied by 100.
Yes. Yes.
It's the best you've got.
Yeah.
And the differences, if any, between them, really you need a very high-powered microscope to make out. But then you have to choose between them.
Yes. And you are suggesting stick to
So
seniority.
you have to go into the various.
You are suggesting stick to
Pardon?
seniority.
Yes, I think seniority is the best because you are judging between peers.
It's the most convenient.
It's the most convenient, you're saying. General Hasnain, one sentence to you and then 20 seconds each to Manish and GVL. General Hasnain?
I'm sorry, Barka, I do not agree with my seniors.
Yes.
Seniority is the surest way of promoting mediocrity. And that is not what the Indian Army stands for. We stand for merit and suitability and people being outstanding when they are required to take their decisions at the top. Notwithstanding the fact that all army commanders are outstanding, there's no doubt about it.
All right, I have to end here. I will allow a brief word to the politicians. Manish, I agree with GVL Rao on one thing, that should this debate not be led by the military community within itself, for politicians to jump in is disturbing. It's just disturbing. Our military must be kept above party politics and away from it.
Well, Barka, I beg to disagree with you. You know, in a democracy, civil-military relations are governed by civilian oversight over military affairs. So therefore, for political parties to take note of a digression is absolutely justified. That is number one. And number two, you do not have a functional appointments committee of cabinet as we speak. You see, the process of the appointments committee of cabinet earlier was that the concerned minister, the administrative minister, would initiate. There would be one more minister the file would go to, and then it would go to the prime minister. Now nobody knows who initiates. It goes directly to the prime minister, and even the home minister sees the file on his way down. So therefore you do not have even an appointments committee of cabinet to look at all those five those five resumes.
I have to close, Mr. Rao.
You see, no, I think the present system where the government selects the chief of army staff, I think, to my mind, this is serving very well. There has never been a problem to bring in several political leaders or parties into this, and each one really dissenting with the other. You would only end up dividing the army. I think the government of the day has a responsibility, has a duty to the country, and has a national security as a part of its governance agenda. So I think it's best the government has its makes its choice, and if any choice that is made is not bona fide, certainly the country is there to really make due corrections. We have a democratic system. But to restrain, to tie the hands of a government of the day, or to bring in dissent into it, is certainly not in order.
I will have to close there by thanking our panel this evening and by saying that this is one debate for once I wish I would not have had to hold, because for the military matters to be discussed in the public gaze is not something that the military needs, but this is something where the debate will unfortunately has already started and been triggered by many military people themselves. Leaving it there tonight on the Buck Stops here.